What if sin isn't actually about breaking rules, but about losing yourself? Seriously, think about it. Have you ever felt this profound sense of alienation, like you're somehow separated from the person you are truly meant to be? Well, you definitely aren't alone in that. Even without any kind of religious premise whatsoever, we pretty much all share this deep-seated feeling that human conduct is just off, that it's somehow corrupted. The theologian Wolfhart Pannenberg brilliantly pointed out that this isn't just a religious problem. It's a universal human experience, and it's entirely visible to literally anyone paying attention.
Let's be honest. For a really long time, our culture has carried some heavy baggage around the word sin. We almost always view it through a super traditional lens, basically just moral rule-breaking. It's like crossing items off of a cosmic checklist of do-nots. But today, we're going to completely reframe that. We're going to look at it through the existential framework of alienation and estrangement. So instead of a list of rules, I want you to think of it as a state of being. It's a real game changer for how we understand our own internal struggles.
Welcome to today's Explainer. I absolutely love demystifying these complex theological and philosophical concepts and showing exactly how they apply to our actual lived experiences. Today, we're taking a journey through some of the greatest minds of the 20th century to see how they totally transformed the way we think about human failure, anxiety, and ultimate freedom. Okay, let's jump right into our roadmap for today. We'll start by redefining sin as estrangement, explore Paul Tillich's idea of dreaming innocence and finite freedom, check out Heidegger's public self, dive into Bultmann's theology of fallenness, and finally, reinterpret ancient texts about the flesh. All right, our first stop is Section 1, Redefining Sin as Estrangement, moving from rules to alienation. So this concept comes to us from the philosopher and theologian Paul Tillich. He realized that the word sin had become so bogged down with moralistic baggage that it had totally lost its original depth. His masterstroke? Suggesting we replace it entirely with a word that hits much closer to home for the human condition. Think about the profound implication of the word estrangement. It is the state of being alienated from that to which one essentially belongs. You literally cannot be estranged from a total stranger, right? You can only be estranged from something you are intimately connected to, whether that's God, other people, or even your own true self. In fact, our hostility or our active turning away from our center actually proves this fundamental connection. Where there is the capacity to hate or rebel, there is undeniable proof of belonging. Tillich breaks this estrangement down into 3 key marks. First up is unbelief. And he doesn't just mean intellectual doubt here, he means an active turning away from the divine center of our being. Second is concupiscence. Big word, I know, but it basically just means a distorted, absolutely unlimited desire for the finite things of the world. It's like trying to fill an infinite void with money, status, or material objects. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. And third, perhaps the most important one, is hubris. Hubris is self-elevation. It's when humanity makes itself the absolute center of its own world, totally ignoring our limits and assigning infinite significance to our own finite creations.
So how exactly does this estrangement happen? Let's move into Section 2. Tillich and dreaming innocence, the pre-actual state.
To help us visualize this transition from essence to existence, Tillich describes our essential nature, our state before we are estranged, as dreaming innocence. Now, it's absolutely crucial to understand that this is not some state of glowing, absolute perfection. Older Orthodox theologians used to describe Adam before the fall as perfectly wise and utterly flawless, which Tillich thought made the whole idea of falling completely unintelligible, like why would a perfect being mess up? Instead, dreaming innocence is just an undecided state of potentiality. Picture a young child's unawakened consciousness. There's a lack of experience, a lack of responsibility, and a lack of moral guilt. It's innocent precisely because it hasn't been tested yet. And this brilliantly highlights the massive contrast between reading ancient texts literally versus existentially. A literal interpretation views the fall as an isolated historical event, just Adam and Eve in a physical garden thousands of years ago. But Tillich's existential interpretation, he views it as a universal transition from essence to existence. It's a transhistorical quality of all human existence, meaning it's not just something that happened to 2 people way back when, it is the fundamental reality happening in every single human life right now as we move from potentiality into actualization. But why is that innocence inevitably lost? Let's unpack the mechanics. In Section 3, the tragedy of finite freedom. Here's the deal. We are free, but our freedom has limits. We are finite.
And as Tillich notes, drawing pretty heavily on the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, when humans become aware of their own finitude, that realization produces anxiety or angst. We suddenly realize we have this weird mixture of being and non-being. We're constantly threatened by the possibility of losing ourselves, and this very anxiety is the driving force that pushes us to make the leap from dreaming innocence into actual existence.
Have you ever felt totally paralyzed by a major life choice? Well, in that moment, your freedom becomes aroused. We find ourselves caught in this terrifying tension. On one hand, we have this deep, burning desire to actualize our potential, to know, to experience, to create. But on the other hand, we face the demand to preserve our innocence and avoid the guilt that inevitably comes with taking action. Driven by the anxiety of leaving our potential unfulfilled, we almost always decide for self-actualization over preserving innocence. We step out into existence, and bam, in doing so, we become estranged. It beautifully and kind of tragically intertwines our own personal responsibility with the universal human destiny.
So what does this look like in our everyday social lives? Let's look at Section 4, Heidegger and the public self. Enter the philosopher Martin Heidegger. He used the term Dasein, which translates to being there, to describe human existence. He argued that we don't just pop into existence in a vacuum. We are literally thrown into a world that is already pre-shaped by the past, our own past decisions, and the past decisions of all humanity. We have to navigate our existence within these given constraints and historical conditions. We're thrown into a world already in motion. It's kind of like walking into a movie theater halfway through the film. You just have to figure out what's going on. And this thrownness can be incredibly overwhelming.
Because the sheer responsibility of navigating this thrown existence is so heavy, Heidegger says we try to escape it. And how do we do that? We retreat into the public self, an illusory collectivism. Instead of facing the ultimate anxiety-inducing issues of our own individual existence, we just stampede into the crowd. We scatter ourselves through the trivialities of everyday talk, curiosity, and social expectations. Today, Heidegger would absolutely point to us hiding from our existential dread by doom-scrolling on social media or obsessing over pop culture gossip. We lose ourselves in the they so that we don't have to be accountable for our own authentic choices.
Now, this philosophical insight had a massive impact on theology. Welcome to Section 5, Bultmann's Theology of Fallenness.
We're bringing in the work of Rudolf Bultmann here, who took Heidegger's concept of the public self and translated it directly into theology. Bultmann wrote, "Evil is a falling away of man from himself, a mistaken orientation of himself away from his authentic being. That is huge. For him, sin isn't just bad behavior, it is a fundamental rebellion. It's when we turn toward the creation, living solely for the visible, tangible stuff of the world, rather than turning to the Creator who gave us our authentic being in the first place. In trying to secure our own lives through worldly things, we actually end up losing our authentic selves entirely."
So Bultmann takes this ontological fallenness, meaning the actual structural nature of our human existence, and he translates it into ethical religious terms. It becomes this tragic aspect of life where humankind is rendered a prisoner of past decisions. It's incredibly cinematic, if you think about it. It's like a tragic literary figure who marches onward toward an unavoidable doom, all while operating under the complete illusion that they are the one in control of their own destiny. We battle with superior forces using our own limited strength, but it's to no avail.
Finally, in Section 6, Reinterpreting the Flesh, we'll ground these theories back into ancient texts to see what it really means for us. Let's look at the writings of Paul the Apostle. It turns out he was actually talking about this exact same phenomenon thousands of years ago. When you read ancient texts talking about the flesh, it's super easy to assume they are just hating on the physical human body. But as theologians like Karl Barth and N.T. Wright point out, that is a massive misunderstanding. The flesh was never about the physical material of our bodies being somehow evil. Rather, it describes an existential orientation. The flesh refers to living a life entirely tethered to the corruptibility, mortality, and rebellion of this temporal world. It's living naively, as though the possibilities of this visible world are all there is to our existence.
On the flip side, the life of the Spirit is defined as freedom beyond the frontier of human possibility. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. You absolutely cannot step into that freedom without first recognizing your unredeemed condition. We have to confront the reality that we exist in the flesh, that our highest human capabilities are still finite and still flawed. Knowing that we are estranged, that we are dead in our illusion of control, is the absolute necessary prerequisite to advancing toward the unobservable possibility of a renewed existence.
So, looking at sin through this existential framework leaves us with a crucial question today. If acknowledging our alienation, our estrangement from our true center, is the gateway to actual, authentic freedom, we have to evaluate our own lives. Are you taking responsibility for your finite freedom and running toward your authentic self? Or are you letting anxiety win, fleeing from the weight of your own existence and just hiding in the trivialities of the public crowd? The choice between existence in the flesh and existence in true freedom is entirely yours to navigate.